Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to take a look at a process that I've been using to remotely access a server from the ocean. Alright, so I guess we'll go ahead and just get the annoying part out of the way. I'm not actually at the ocean right now. My boat is tied up to the dock on power and everything, but there is nothing about this process that would prevent me from being out on the open ocean and still simultaneously being able to remote into a server that I have at an undisclosed location and manipulate files on it, move things around on it, even transfer files from, a phone or a laptop that I'm using to remote in to the server or the other way around. We're going to get into all of it. But the first thing we need to establish is how this process is going to actually work. There's basically 2 or 3 different things that we're going to need. We're going to need to open up a VPN tunnel from one machine to another. The service that I personally like to use for this is called Tailscale. The video isn't sponsored or anything, but Tailscale does have apps on macOS, Windows, Linux, BSD, Android, iPhone, the whole 9 yards, and they make it very, very easy to open up a VPN here, remote in here, which is precisely what we need. Beyond Tailscale, what we're also going to need is just some piece of software that's actually going to let us remote into a machine. Almost always that's going to be SSH. That's what we're going to be using in this video as well. And the final thing that you may want is some sort of application that's going to let you transfer files from one device to another. You could use a program called SCP if you wanted to. In this video, we're going to be using rSync just because rSync's a little more robust, has some features that SCP does not. So let's go ahead and talk about actually getting this nice and set up. Oh, actually one more thing I should mention. Full disclaimer, I'm no security expert or anything, but I don't love the idea of opening up a Tailscale connection on my actual file server itself. There's nothing preventing you from doing that. My file server is a FreeBSD box, just so that I can take advantage of ZFS on there. And Tailscale is really easy to install on FreeBSD. It's just, I don't personally love the idea of remoting directly into my server. So, and also I'm quite lucky in that I have access to a whole bunch of old computers, old laptops that are either broken or just old and don't run very well. So what I've done is just literally sitting right on top of the FreeBSD server. I have a laptop with a broken screen that I just did a fresh install of Ubuntu on and installed nothing but Tailscale. So in this case, we're going to be using basically an intermediate device to interact with the server. All right, so if we go ahead and head on over to tailscale.com/downloads, click on Linux, we can see that to install Tailscale on Linux, it is literally just one curl command. As soon as this command is complete, you can see that to start Tailscale, all we have to do is run the following command: sudo tailscale up. Now, normally what that will do is print a line to your terminal with a URL. Click that URL and it's going to take you to login.tailscale.com, where you can then either create a Tailscale account or log in to your pre-existing Tailscale account. To confirm that Tailscale is indeed up, we can go ahead and run the command tailscale status. And we can immediately see the status of all of our devices that are connected to Tailscale. Now, I'm blocking off the IP addresses here, but what we can see here is our first machine is actually this Fedora box right here that I'm working on. I do also have my Google Pixel 8 Pro signed into Tailscale. It's not online right now. That is good practice. You shouldn't just leave Tailscale up all the time. However, that being said, the one machine that I do just leave Tailscale up on running all the time is this one, Lima, and that is the Ubuntu box that has nothing but Tailscale installed on it that I mentioned previously. I'm gonna go ahead and copy that IP address. In order to remote into that Ubuntu machine, all you would need to do is run SSH exactly how you normally would. The syntax for SSH is SSH user at host. So in this case, it would be MAC at that IP address. However, it is worth mentioning that if, like me, you're lazy and use the same username everywhere, you can just SSH with just the IP address. Once you get that, it's going to go ahead and ask for a password, and we're going to go to a whole bunch of but we are now remoted into this new machine. From here, the process that I would normally work with is I sort of just know the IP address of my file server off the top of my head, so I just SSH into 192. Ooh, I probably actually shouldn't say the IP address out loud. I don't know that it's like a major security issue, but I'll keep it sort of quiet. Once we've done that, you can see I'm now here in MAKC, and if I go ahead and let's see, cd into mount, we can start to see the structure of the actual system. I'll cd into the Stalingrad folder. Here I've got files, just some generic files. These are mostly just Linux ISOs. And then I also have a folder called MAKC. If we go in here, you can actually see some interesting stuff, what I use this file server for most of the time. We're going to go ahead and just exit out of MAKC, and let's set up a real quick little sample test project. I don't want to move around any massive files here, but we'll create something to work with. So I'm going to go into my, I guess I'll do my downloads here. That was a Linux distribution that I was going to try out. But anyways, let's go ahead and just make a directory. We'll call it test. Yeah, I did mean make dir actually. And we'll cd into test. Cd into test. And I don't know, let's create a couple of files. test1.md, test2.md. In one of those files, we'll add just some test text. And then in another one, we'll do something that I can actually decipher, because that would probably be a good idea. And then just for the hell of it, because I'm not even sure if this will work, I'm going to create just an empty test folder, and we'll see if it'll move over, just an empty directory. You can see what we're going to try to transfer over. Folder called test, inside of there an empty folder called test folder, file called test1, file called test2, both have some text already in there. So let's go ahead and take a look at rSync. Really awesome tool. Important things that I'm going to go over here with rSync, features that I personally like of it, is we have a couple of important flags. We have one called -A. This is the archive flag. It's what's going to let us recursively transfer a folder, all the contents of the folder. Very handy. We have a -V, which is going to be verbose. All that's going to do is basically just tell rSync to tell us what's actually happening while it's running the command. Along those same lines, there is actually also a progress flag that'll just give us literally a progress bar. I've used this several times. It's very handy, very helpful. -Z that will compress files while they're being transferred. Haven't ever actually tried this one, but it does seem pretty handy to know. And then one thing that I have used a couple of times is, assuming that an rSync transfer actually does fail, there's a flag called partial. And what you can do is just rerun the exact same rSync command you ran originally, add that partial flag in, and it'll continue the file transfer where it left off. What we're going to do is go ahead and run rsync-av to transfer the entire folder structure. For the heck of it, we'll go ahead and throw on the progress flag. Now what we need to do is just select the actual file. So we're going to select that test directory. Now this is very important here. If you're selecting a directory, do not include a backslash. If you do include this backslash, what rSync is going to do is just send the files that are in the folder and not the actual folder itself. But now what we're going to need to do is go ahead and tell rSync where we want to send this folder. So I'm going to send it to Mac at my IP address, / the location where I know that it needs to end up. So we're going to send it to mount/Stalingrad/MAKC. And I am going to include the / there so that it knows to put that MAKC is a directory and it needs to put this directory inside of that directory. Anyways, we'll go ahead and hit enter, let it do its thing. It's going to ask for a password, give it a password, and that went obscenely quickly, but let's go ahead and see how it did. I'm actually just going to SSH into 192. I gotta stop saying that out loud. Well, you know the first bit of it. And if we go ahead and cd into mount Stalingrad MAKC, what we now should have is indeed the test folder. cd in there. Let's go ahead and do an ls-la, and we can see we do indeed have that empty directory folder, which is awesome. We have our test1 file and our test2 file, and let's just cat out test1 and test2, and yep. So that's basically the setup. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this connection here. I use this all the time. One thing that I know I do with it all the time, and I've done a little bit of research to confirm that other people are also doing this, is I like to use transmission on the intermediate box here, and I'll use this to download all sorts of Linux ISOs. Just found out about a new distribution called the RIP today. Haven't messed around with it yet at all, but I do like Matt Damon, so hopefully that'll be pretty fun.
Yeah, it's good.
But, you know, you can use something like transmission, download your Linux ISO, throw them on your file server. It's very convenient, very easy to do. And then, you know, if you just happen to have something like a Plex server where you can view all of those different Linux ISOs, my joke's falling apart a little bit. But that is probably going to be about it for this video. Hopefully you did learn something interesting. If you are interested, I also did just create a little bit of a guide on my personal website that'll run through the steps for this. I've been keeping like documentation basically for a while, just offline, and pretty recently I started just moving the documentation onto my website. Every time I've been doing anything interesting, I just go ahead and make the documentation public. So there'll be a link to that in the description. That is going to be about it for this video. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.